Now, I'm sure all of you by now have heard about ChatGPT, which is making rounds all over the internet. And this is an AI bot that can seemingly do everything. It can do your homework, it can be your psychologist, it can give you food recipes, it can create workout plans, it can even almost walk your dog, and it can definitely build apps, at least write code for them. And so in today's video, we are going to see just how good it is and whether it's capable of building a very, very simple Flutter app for us. Now, before we get started, the first thing that you need to do is you need to set up your IDE environment. Here I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I already have my Flutter runtime installed. I have my Dart runtime installed. If you haven't yet done this or you do not know how to do this, please check out one of my previous videos where I walk you step by step on exactly how you should be able to do it. And so once you have it all set up, you can simply run Visual Studio Code, which is my IDE of choice. And once I started it, well, I'm going to do Command-Shift-P, and I'm going to create a new Flutter project. I'm going to choose application here, and I'm going to pick a directory or where to create it. I'm just going to call it whatever. It doesn't really matter. And that's going to set up a new Flutter project for me. Now, before we start building this app, it's a good idea to test out and make sure everything is working on your end. And so you want to test out that sample app that Flutter set up for you. And you can do that by going to the top right corner and click on Run. So we're going to click that. That's going to compile it. I have it set up for Mac OS. Doesn't really matter. And so the app is ready, and you should see something similar. You should see plus. Okay, so we know everything is working. We can close this down and we can start building our new app. Now, the idea for this app is going to be a simple to-do app. And the way they work typically is that you have an input where you can enter a task. So something like clean my room, finish work, etc., walk the dog. And once you enter something, you can press OK, and that's going to create a list. And later on, you can also mark it as it's done, right? So you can mark it. If it's done, it's going to move below, or you can also delete it. Obviously, you can add more functionality, edit and all that, but we're going to keep it very, very simple. We're just going to be adding new items, marking them as done, or deleting them if we do not need them. And so now that we've covered how this app is going to look and what it's going to do, let's go into ChatGPT and give it some instructions so it can create the app for us. So the first thing that I did is I told it create a to-do app in Flutter, and it gave me a little bit of a description. Creating a to-do app in Flutter is a great way to get started. And so it gave me sample code. And so what we can do is we can copy this code. We can go back to our IDE. And because this is a full code, it's not a widget, it's not a part of an app, it's the entire thing. We can delete all this and paste it exactly the way we see it. So if I close that, and once I've pasted, it looks like I have an error. But more than that, I'm seeing a lot of warnings. So if you are in your IDE here and you're browsing and you see it like this wavy blue underline, that's a warning, which means that, you can run this app without making those changes, without fixing it, but your app is gonna be in a better shape if you do fix it. And so my opinion is if you can fix it, fix it. It's gonna be better that way. And an easy way to fix these little warnings here is to hover over, come to quick fix, and pick one of the options here. Okay, so we can do that. And so these are relatively simple fixes. We can fix them later, but it looks like I have an error here. Okay, so it's telling me that I have one error. And if I scroll over and I see this red box here, this red little mark here, and that means the error is somewhere here. And actually this is the error. And so it's telling me the body might complete normally, causing null to be returned, but the return type widget is a potentially non-nullable type. And so the question is, why are we getting that error? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can go back to ChatGPT, and it might actually tell you. It might actually tell you before the code or after the code. In this case, we don't have, the exact reason, but we do have comments. And so what's happening here is that item builder, which is part of this list view builder. List view is a widget that creates a list. And in order for it to create a list, it needs to know what are going to be the actual widgets inside. Okay, so if you think about our diagram here, right? This whole thing is a list, right? This whole thing is a list. So if I show you like this whole thing is a list, okay? Like this. This whole thing is a list. Inside this list, we have various elements. And so what we're doing here is we are generating this list dynamically. We have an item builder, and that item builder gets a context and an index. And context is really like, what's happening. It's the context of the app. But what's important here is the index, right? We're passing the index, and the index is actually the number, the position of the individual element inside the list. It starts from 0, so we're telling it 0 is this, 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this, and we do that until we've done all the items. And we have these to-do items here, and it's a list, and so we're checking against the length. Essentially, we're giving that to-do items, and we're saying, okay, keep going until you finish all the items. But the problem is, it doesn't like it, because once it finishes it doesn't know what to do anymore. All right, it doesn't know what to do anymore. It's gonna keep going, but we don't have any more items to do, and so we need to fix how this works. And so I had a great idea to go back to ChatGPT, and I told it, look, we got an error. Your code gave us an error. So I said, I'm getting an error with this Flutter code, and I pasted this code. I went ahead and I pasted this code, and I said, I'm getting an error. And ChatGPT is smart enough to figure out what happened. So it's telling me, the error message you're seeing is likely related to the fact that the item builder function must return a widget. It seems like you're not returning a widget in the case where index is greater or equal, which is exactly the case. And so it gave me a couple of solutions. It either told me return null, once we're done, but that's not an optimal solution. It also told me to return container, which is an empty element. So we're gonna have, X elements that are items, and then everything else containers. We don't want that, but it was smart enough to give us the right solution. And the right solution is to explicitly state how many items that we're passing. And we do that by passing this argument. So this list view, we're not only passing the item builder with this if condition, we're actually going to tell it, look, we have X items. So we're going to pass that here. And now we don't need this if condition. We can delete it or comment it out. So I'm just going to comment it out, because that's not an optimal situation. And so now it knows the length, and for each of those items, which we're going to pass because this is how many items we have, it's going to build a to-do item. Okay, and this is the method here. The to-do item is going to return a list tile, and inside the list tile, it's going to be a text widget. Remember, in Flutter, you can have hierarchy of widgets. You can have a widget, and the widget might have a child, and that other widget might have another child. So you have that kind of relationship. And so this thing passes the actual to-do item, right, which is this item that we have here, this list here, and that takes that string and wraps it inside of a list style and a text to-do text, which is exactly what we need. So now we don't have any errors. Let's go ahead and run this app. Let's see if it actually, let's see if it works. So we're gonna run this app. I'm targeting desktop here, but it doesn't matter what you target. It should work all the same. All right, so here's our app. We have a button here. This is a floating action button. And if you press it, we are in a new, in a new view, in a new page here, and it's telling us enter something to do. So let's say I enter clean my room, and I guess I need to press enter because there's no button or anything I'm gonna press. And it went ahead, it came back, and it actually listed the items. Okay, so we're gonna press, we're gonna add a couple of more items here. Call my mom. Okay, perfect. Look at that. Clean my room, call my mom. What else can we do? We can say, how about write some Flutter code. Okay, press enter, and there it is. Now, the problem with this app is that we can't mark something as done. Okay, we can't mark it as done. And we can't delete it, but most importantly, we can't mark it as done. So I'm gonna go back into ChatGPT and we are gonna ask it to create a way to mark items as done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say something like, allow me to mark each of the items, any of the items as done. Okay, and so there we go. All right, so we got a response and it's telling me that you can add a button or a gesture detector to each of the item, to each item in your build to-do item function and use it to mark the item as done. Here's an example of how you might do this. What we have here is, remember, for each of these items, we are using this function to build the individual item. And so this build to-do item, what it's doing is, if we go back to our diagram here, it's generating this tile and also some elements inside of it. But the point is we have a list and each item inside the list is generated by this function. And right now, all we have is a list tile with a text inside holding our text. But it figured out that we can actually do more. So if we come here, this is what we can use. So we're going to copy this and we're going to replace this function. Okay, we're going to replace it. And now what we have, now the problem is that this is an error right here. So to-do item is an error. That's because we don't have a to-do item. So we're going to do string. Okay. And it's assuming that's a to-do item. And so it's referencing, it's assuming it's a to-do item class. And so it's referencing a tile and done and all of these things. And actually, this is the right approach to have it as a to-do item. And that is because in the previous example, we only had a string. Now we're keeping more things with it. We want to know if it's done or not done, etc., etc. And so this is the best approach. So we're gonna revert to this, but I also wanted to create the class. This is gonna be a class now. So I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna ask it to create a class. Create a class for to-do item. Okay, let's see if it does that. All right, so this is the response we got. Here's an example of what the to-do item class might look like. And so this class is going to contain two pieces of data for each item. We need to store the title and we need to store whether it's done or not. And so here we have a constructor that takes in the title and takes in the done. If done is not passed, it's a default, it's going to be defaulted to false, which is kind of what we need. And then we also have a method here that called toggle done, which essentially makes it either done or not done, depending on the state, because what we're doing is we're setting is done to the opposite of is done, which toggles it. So we're going to copy this code. We're going to go back in here and we're going to paste it outside of our main widget classes because this is an independent class. And typically when you're building apps, you might want to have a separate file for these specific classes. You might have a to-do item, .dart, where you're going to, have it there and then you're going to import this data here. And so now we have this to-do item. We're not getting an error, but we're still getting other errors, right? It's built to-do items here. And that is because this thing here needs to be something else anymore. It's not string anymore. It's going to be something else now. But if you go in here, it's telling us you can use this class inside your build to-do item function like this. So it generated a new build to-do item. So let's go and copy that. And we can also initialize it. So let's go ahead and copy it and we're gonna copy it right here. Okay, so that has no errors. That looks good. The only thing is this has an error because to-do items is messed up here. So if we hover over here, the argument type string can be assigned to the parameter type to-do item. Okay, because this to-do item is a list of strings. And so we need to fix how it's building, right? So we can fix it by making it to-do item a list of to-do items. Okay, so now it's a list of to-do items, and this is gonna add it here, and this is gonna add it here. But we also need to make sure that we're adding it correctly because it was a list of strings before, and here we have to-do items dot add task, and so we have this add to-do item which passes a string. And the thing is now this to-do items is not a list of strings. It's now a list of to-do items. And so we need to create a new to-do item, and we need to say task. And so what we are doing here is we are creating a new to-do item, an object from this class, and we're specifying the title as a task instead of just passing it directly. We're not specifying done because, as you saw here, it doesn't require, it's an optional parameter. If we do not pass it, it's going to be defaulting to false. So it looks like everything is good. We still have those warnings, which is absolutely okay. All right, so let's run our new app and let's see if it works or not. All right, so here's the app, and let's go ahead and add a task, a new task. Okay, so there it is. And so now we have a checkbox, so we can check it, and it's gonna keep state of this item as checked. So we can add a new task not done. And you see this is not done because the default state is not checked, so we can check it. The other thing that we can do is we can list tasks that are done and also list tasks that are not done. So let's try to see if that works. We can possibly create two lists where we have the initial list of tasks that are not done, and once we click on something, it's gonna move to the second list. So let's see if it's able to do that. And so I asked it to create a new list with only done items, and it's telling me you can create a new list with only the done items using where function from the Dart collection library. So now we're using some other function and an external function. The where function returns a new iterable with only the elements that satisfy a certain condition. Here's an example of how you might create a new list with only the done items. So that's an interesting way of doing it. It also told me something else that I can do. I can also use the filter function. And so let's try this filter function. Let's see if it works. Let's copy this. And what happens here is this is going to be a function inside our stateful widget. Okay, it's going to return this new list here. So we're going to copy this and we're going to just paste it. We're going to paste it maybe right here. It doesn't really matter. And so it's telling us filter is not defined for the type list. Let's see if it can help us. I'm getting an error that filter is not defined for the type. Okay. And so I told it I'm getting an error that filter is not defined for the type list. And it actually replied with, I apologize for the confusion. You are correct that filter method is not defined for the type list. It is actually a method of the iterable class, but there's a simple way to get around the issue. So it figured out that, it committed an error, and it told me that I can do it. So let's take a look. How do we unwrangle this? So I can do a from where, I can just do where. So, however, there's a simple way. You can use where method on the to-do items to filter the items, then call toList to convert the resulting iterable to a list. Okay, so that's one way. That's an interesting way of doing it. Additionally, you can use list from to create a new filter. Okay, so how about this one? Is this going to work? We're going to copy this. We're going to paste it right here. Okay. Looks like this is fine, and we are getting our done to-do items. And so what we have is a function that returns a filtered list. And what we can do is we can replace it with an existing list. Okay, so if we have this list here, and we can essentially create a new list that displays another list of just the filtered items, for instance. So if we scroll up, we have this body here. So body has a build to-do list. And so this thing returns a list. So build to-do list is right here. This is a list view. So what we need to do is we need to create two lists. And that means we need a column with two children. And so, we can ask the bot to do it, or we can do it ourselves. And so what we can do is we can wrap this inside a column and then add another element, and that's going to format it in a vertical fashion, because that's how columns are formatted. So we can right click here and we can go into refactor and we can say wrap with column. Okay, so now this is wrap with column. And it's part of children, and we can create another child, and that's going to be one before the other. And so what we're going to do is we're going to paste this one here. Now, the other problem is that this is returning a list of to-do item. We need a list view. We need something that can be a widget. So what we need to do is we need to convert this into a list view widget. So let's see if that works. convert this list, convert the resulting list into a list view widget. Let's see if that works. All right, so we asked it to convert the resulting list into a list view widget. And so it told us that we can use this builder again and created this builder function. Now we already used this function. This is this function right here. So we have another function here. So this is build done to-do list. Okay, so it's not reference, which is fine. And we can reference it here. Build done to-do list. Okay, so now we can do build done to-do list. And it looks like we don't have any errors. We have this list here that we are getting done to-do items here. All right, so let's run the new app. Let's see if it works. So the problem here is we're not seeing that button anymore. So let's see if it can solve that problem for us. Let's see. Let's go ahead and paste this and ask it why isn't the button being displayed? Why isn't the button visible here? All right, so I asked it, why can't I see the floating action button in this code? And it replied exactly what I thought it was. It's an overflow error. So it's telling me that it's overflowing. It recommended making these expanded. So let's see if it works. That should definitely fix it. Let's come in here and let's make these columns expanded. So this child expanded. Okay, let's run our app again. And there it is. There's the button. Okay. So now let's see if it works. Let's see if that list view is displaying properly. We're going to add a new element, a new task 1. Okay, so we don't have that second list yet. And now we're seeing the second list. How cool is that? We remove it, we're not seeing it anymore. Okay, so now we can add a new one, new task, clean my room. Clean, I can't type today, clean my room. Okay, perfect. Look at that. And it's it's displaying it here. And obviously the best way of fixing it would be to create another filter of only to display not done elements. Okay, so and that's a very, very easy thing to do. And look how beautiful it is. Look at that. Another task to do today, and look at that. And I can do that here. And the idea is obviously this is going to be all done task. This is not done task. And it's very, very trivial to do that, because all we have to do is come in here and we can just create not done items, right? We can just copy this here and say not done items. And we can say, something like this. This is not done items. And then in the first one, in the first builder, we can use not done items or something like that. And so let's rerun the app and let's see if that fixed it. We're going to execute this app again. All right, let's add a new task. New task is here. Okay. And look at that. It moves depending on where it is. So another task. And so take a look at this. We have 2 tasks. I can click here. Now this is completed. This is not completed. Let's add another task. Here's a 3rd task. And so now we have 3 tasks here. And we can complete them. We can complete them. We can complete them. We can uncomplete it, etc., etc. And so there you have it, a very, very simple app written, tested, and built, and hopefully launched as well with the help of this amazing AI chatbot called ChatGPT. Of course, it's not perfect. I still had to go out and I had to, fix things. I had to look at things. And the way I view this chatbot is it's an amazing assistant. It's not at the level where it's going to just build an entire app for you and test it and launch it and, walk your dog and do your laundry and all these things. It's an assistant right now, but who knows, maybe in the next couple of years or maybe even less, we're going to be looking at something a lot more capable, something that can do a lot of these tasks that we still have to do ourselves for now. And so I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you've gotten value here. If you did, I would highly urge you to subscribe to this channel. This is a brand new channel. We are looking to build it out. We're going to have tons and tons of great Flutter, Dart, and many other different language tutorials. Leave a comments below with your suggestions for a next topic. And I will see you in a future video.